Thank you very much. Yeah, and I was introduced as CEO, but we actually sold a minority, so I'm happy to announce that I stepped down, and I'm now focusing on the product side, the product development side, and we have a new CEO. So we've been around for 18 years now, and grown to a size where we wanted to now have other structure on it. So yeah, both Henrik and I are focused on the product development. We have a background from DTU as a Master of Science. And yeah, Henrik has a PhD and then later also professor in computer graphics. And he's the one that got the Oscar, so you'll have to settle with the version 2 of Brother. So we specialize in 3D rendering, and we have an office in Aarhus where I lead the development, and then we have an office in California where Henrik lives. We actually, before 2003, we went around with this idea it must be easier to do 3D rendering. Back then it was a very tedious task. You were probably sent to the basement to the geeks that knew all the buttons and how many photons this light should send out, and so it's very hard. But in 2003, Velux came to us and asked, can we do this in an easier way where architects can figure this out without knowing all the details behind the physics. And we took this challenge, and we're actually still developing what is called the daylight visualizer today. So you can go into Velux homepage and download it. It's a free tool, so you can evaluate the daylight factors in a room before you sit in the window. So it's actually been used and changed Windows configurations in building to optimize for daylighting conditions. And while we had the daylight visualizer development, we started actually to do some development with plugins, trying to do something in CAD systems where you typically have the rendering is just a tool, a plugin you put into your CAD system. And it never felt right, so we tried to instead take the rendering part out of the CAD system and put it in an individual package that we today call KeyShot. And I'll just show a show reel from our latest virtual KeyShot world, so to get an idea of what we can produce of images. So. And this is some of the customers we have, and it's a wide variety of customers. It's used all the way from conceptual design to engineering, where you start puzzling around, to product design, and all the way to marketing images. And initially, we went to Automotive, because they have a lot of money, so that was obvious. And they also had some difficulties, because they were still using clay models back in 2005-06. And a very tedious process with a low turnaround or long turnaround time. And by introducing KeyShot, we were able to put the cars on power walls, and actually as the managers were sitting there, all the stakeholders, they could immediately change the color or change the wheels and quickly evaluate designs. So really shortened the production time or the design time. Yeah, and KeyShot, as it looks here, is quite simple. We have a certain workflow that we have kept throughout the beginning. The current version is at version 10. The focus all the way has to be that it's fast. We have always hated when programs get older and older and it takes longer and longer to start, so that's really a high focus. We had one version where it was suddenly 1 second slower to start and the customers immediately contact us, what's happening? So always fast, always easy. Don't add more buttons than we need, because we have product designers are not that technical. They just want to produce something. They want it like a digital camera so they can set the creativity free and don't have to worry about other technical aspects. And of course, it needs to be accurate. It's based on real physics. So the process, I'll just walk through it quickly. You import your model, and you can import models from a lot of different tools. So we have plugins where you can easily transfer the model, but we also have direct import and import of animations if you have simulation tools. You paint it, it's just drag and drop. You have a lot of, I think it's 800 materials that comes with the library, and you can of course extend it. It's the metal, plastic, glass, dielectric, etc. And then you can put lighting on. So in this case, it's an artificial studio light, but you could also take a 360 with your camera and then place a car here if you want it. And you can of course also put electric light in there to illuminate your model. And then finally, you adjust your camera to get the right angle right. And back in the old days, this was quite tedious in the plug or in the CAD programs. You would have to hit a button and make a lot of coffee and wait and wait and wait and come back, and maybe you didn't get the angle correctly. But this is with the interactivity and the real-time feedback, you can quickly get the correct angle and then start the render. And this is the final image. And we're constantly looking for technology. So GPUs has been around for a long time. We've been looking at them for a long time. But it wasn't until a couple of years ago that NVIDIA came out with hardware ray tracing. So ray tracing is a central part of what we're doing. A computational thing, so it was made in software before, where you compute where light hits an object. But now, with the hardware ray tracing, we can render a car like this with 65 frames per second. And this was with an older card, so today it will be 3 times faster. So it's quickly evolving. Another example. 35 frames per second. Yeah, and besides all the materials I talked about, all the standard materials, you also sometimes want to have real-world materials into your 3D model. And we can use scanned materials. In this case, it's a material that was cut out of a bag and put into a TAC 7 scanner from X-Rite. We also have support for scans that come in from Visu, which is also used a lot. And then you can start using it in your 3D model. We also have a very special material, which is a cutaway. So for engineering purpose, you sometimes want to illustrate something by cutting through your model. And in this case, it's a fish tank where you want to see how the fish and the water is rotating. And cloth is actually a very hard material to represent digitally. We spent together with a university 8 years to come out with a good model. So in this case, you go in and you specify a weave pattern and all the flyaway fibers. And it's all those little details, how the threads and yarns and how that goes together that gives the correct lighting. If you don't have that, it will look flat and wrong, and the eye immediately sees that. So it's quite new material we have, and we have high expectations for that. So I hope there's someone from the cloth apparel industry here. And it's not only about getting still images and animations out. We see KeyShot as a hub for visualization. There's so many options to get pictures and models out in other formats today. So I'll just touch upon AR and a VR where you put on goggles, and I will touch upon 3MF integration we made with Stratasys. So with KeyVR, you put on your goggles, and now you get a sense of being there together with the model. You have handles where you can play around with the models. You can teleport, so you sit in the driver's seat, for example. And it's hard to replicate on this screen. You really have to try it yourself. So. And we have baking out to AR. Let me see, it's done. Yeah. So in this case, it's a format called USDC. So if you have an iPhone, some of you may have tried using this model where you can place a virtual model on the floor or the table. So in this case, we can bake out this model and have the USD file that you put on your website. And then in a minute, we put it into an iPad here and put it on the table. And then you can go around and inspect it. It's a great way to collaborate and show your designs to your boss, or have people download it at home if they want to try out a couch or a lamp or whatever. There's also a format called GLTF. It's more on the Android and Windows side. So that's where you have the Betamax and the VHS. So who's winning? We don't know yet. But we have both formats. A couple of years ago, we started a collaboration with Stratasys. Stratasys went out to the customers to ask, what do you need? We have this new cool full-color PolyJet printer, but what do you need? And we are very happy to hear they wanted KeyShot integration. So we started making this collaboration where we worked on enhancing 3MF format so we can use all the capabilities in the 3D printer. And this has been developed during COVID time, so a great example of remote. We did actually meet in 2019, and then everything was remote from there. And we were so lucky to get a J55 in the office, a loaner. It's a 100,000 euro machine, but amazing what it can do. And I'll show here. So this is the screen, the virtual version, and this is the printed version. And I actually have it with me today if you want to see it closer. So you have all the bump maps. You really get the textile feedback and how it feels. So this is a gear shift. So a nice way to check that your design works. And here it's some speaker grills. Want to test some different colors and versions. And it's a full color, and it supports Pantone colors. And it has been very well accepted by some of our common customers, like Apple, Google, Decathlon in France. So it gives a very rapid way of prototyping and developing your product. So during the day, you make the visualization and say, now we think it's good, let's print it. And you can start the printer, and the next morning you have your print ready and to inspect further. Just some quick images. I know time is slipping. from engineering. This is from architecture, from design. So this is a final marketing images, also a final marketing image. And it's also used in entertainment. They actually used it for Star Wars to evaluate some of the characters. Because a movie pipeline is so complicated, you don't just try something out quickly. So it's much easier to use KeyShot to evaluate the characters. They're also doing that with the Avatar. So they have used KeyVR to stand next to the big Navi. And Automotive. Yeah, and if you want to learn more, go to keyshot.com or talk to me afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Claus. It was a pleasure hearing you.